to something real that we can, and tangible that we can hold on to. So, and you can't talk about the Riverview thing at all, right? Let's just say if I had a person standing from here to there to me, right? And if I had, I don't know, a taser or something with me, right? Or if I had a gun with me. Are they looking at training that would allow that officer to shoot that guy or that person in such a way that they don't mortally wound them, or is it all just center mass or headshots?
And I think if you went to any department around the country, there'll be an outlier, but any department around the country, major city, they train officers to stop the aggression. And so what I said earlier is that we don't train to shoot in the knee or shoot in the elbow. We train to stop the aggression. If
stop the aggression meaning terminally, or just to
stop the aggression. Okay. So just as an example, there have been 6 police shootings so far this year. Only 2 were fatal. So in those 4 others, the aggression was stopped and they were not fatal shootings. So just to give you an example, every shooting is not a fatal shooting. So we train the officers to stop the aggression. Agencies train to shoot center mass. It is not like you see in the movies, is what I said earlier. Because if you're shot in the arm, you can continue. If you had a gun, if you had a knife, if you're shot in the knee, you could continue perhaps. Depends on your state of mind. Are you under the influence of alcohol? Are you under the influence of drugs? A variety of factors. So what the standard is, and I believe it's supported by the Department of Justice, by the COPS office, by most agencies, is to stop the aggression. Not always fatal, but certainly deadly force is exactly that, deadly force.
Okay. You also talked about body cams. Would you guys be willing to, well, first, what's the cost of an average body cam? And what are we looking at in terms of expense?
And I'll just touch on it, and then I'll let the Colonel go into details. Probably in the neighborhood of $1,200 to $1,700 per unit. The key is going to be ongoing maintenance and support. That data has to be stored. Most are going to a cloud-based solution, and it needs a support staff to keep those running. So purchase between $1,200 and $1,700 per unit, and then ongoing annual expense of storage and tech support.
And how many units?
Well, in the police, the uniformed patrol division is about 900, just to give you a rough estimate.
1,000 units. You want? Yeah, I don't know if it was that it. And so the total expense, but what's your total expense for that?
So if we were to look at some of the available solutions, somewhere between what is that, $1.5 million
or $2 million? Let's just say $2 million by the time.
Plus ongoing cloud storage and tech support. So
we're looking at that general obligation bond initiative, right? And one of the things that's in the general obligation bond was the real-time intelligence center, right? And I forget you guys were looking at like $7 or $8 million for the real-time intelligence center. I know it was 5, but it was part of it was in the on the Proposition 7, that transportation tax. So if the transportation tax isn't there, I think we end up having to look at like somewhere near $8 million. Instead of the real-time intelligence center, one of the things I'd like to talk with you guys about is seeing if we can implement this, these body cams through the GEO bond, unless you guys have $2 million laying around.
To answer that, no. And if I could just offer one thing, I think the conversation is always good. I think those are decisions that need to be made. Public safety and body cams. Public safety is important to me too, so I wouldn't cut out the real-time crime center.
But I'm saying, take a look at that, and we'll sit down and talk about that. How we can get, because at the end of the day, what I would not want to happen is us to go through that bond process, and at the end of that bond process, still be looking at how we fund these body cams, right? And I think that that's an important component along with everything else we're looking at.
And I am supportive. The only thing I would say, I don't want to jeopardize the real-time crime center for something else. I think there's other avenues for money, because I agree.
Okay, all right. I'm getting there. But Chief, the last thing I would say is this. I still don't think we got down to the point where we can leave here with anything workable. I think it would be good if we had an opportunity to expand this discussion to include not just you, but some of the uniformed officers also, and some of the people, some of the community people also, because then I think we can actually get down to something, because until we truly understand what the disconnect is, right, if this is the only way the officers are being trained to react, if we really truly need to expand diversity training within these officers, if it's more community interaction between officers and the community. I still don't think we're there. I don't think we have any answers yet. And I think it's critical that we get to some answers, because I think in light of what has happened in Ferguson, we're going to see a continued escalation and continued frustration from the community. And if we continue down that path, one of the statements you made earlier, you said we want to make sure that these officers get home safe. I think that we're putting a lot of them in jeopardy. Because we need the community to have confidence in their police department and the police to feel comfortable with the community. So I think we need to all get to work right away to figure out how we make that happen.
And I 100% agree with you, and I hope you see the conversation that we're having here and the support and the command staff that we have here. We agree with you. And so conversation is the first, dialogue is the first, and what's the next step? Because I want to make sure that in 6 months, in a year, we're having different conversations because we're in a better place.
Madam Chair, just one last question. The other thing I'd like to say is, what is being done, or have you begun to look at what's going to happen based on the outcome of the decision in Ferguson?
We are. I said earlier, I left a meeting this morning at Troop C to come here, where the COPS office brought in Commissioner Ramsey from Philadelphia, the president of NOBLE, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Officers, to have just that conversation. So the Assistant Chief of Police, Al Atkins, Colonel Paul Nashero, they're having that conversation. We're talking on a regional level, not just about response, but about what we can do to improve those relationships with the community, to mitigate some of the feelings or the concerns that the community have. This is a piece of that, to have the dialogue. Don't get me wrong, we are planning tactically, strategically, to make sure that we keep the city of St. Louis safe, but we are having those conversations, and that was a great example of it this morning when the COPS office is in town, sitting down, talking about lessons learned from Seminole County, from the Trayvon Martin incident, or from Sanford, from the Sanford Police Department in Florida. 2 former chiefs there to talk about that. Chuck Ramsey is the president of PERF. He is the president of the Major City Chiefs Association, a nationally renowned name, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia now. We are having those conversations, what we can do inside the community, what we can do to make sure that law enforcement is prepared. And I do not know what the outcome will be. I do not know when the grand jury will come back, but we are having those conversations daily right now.
Okay.
All right, Alderman Boyd.
Thank you again, Madam Chairwoman, Chief Dotson. When I was about 18 years old, I had the opportunity after graduating from high school to join the Army. The first few years I spent about 3 years over in Germany. It gave me a very unique perspective, being a young kid, serving in the military, to not only learn to appreciate people of different races and ethnicity, but also being in a foreign country and understanding the citizens in a foreign land. After that tour, I had an opportunity to serve as an Army recruiter in a small town called Elgin, Illinois. Elgin, Illinois had a real tough side of town. They had a more wealthy side of town, but more so around the inner ring of Elgin were a lot of pretty wealthy individuals. It gave me a very unique perspective as an Army recruiter on why some people would join the military and why some people would not. Some of it is patriotism, some of it was they just need a job, but more often than not, I found that in my life experience as a recruiter, a lot of people did it because they just felt they wanted to serve their country. The police, in our police department and interaction with our citizens, certainly every day, it should be our priority and our goal that not only do police go home and see another day, but the citizens actually have an opportunity to go home and see another day as well. And through my life experience, and I say all this after spending 23 years, there's not enough money you could pay me to be a police officer. I appreciate that the police officers have an extremely difficult job to do. And again, I'm admitting I wouldn't want to do it. I think it's very easy for us to second guess what we would do. Whether we're a citizen with a right to carry and someone approaches us in a dark alley, what will we do? So this conversation is a very large conversation for me. It's a huge conversation. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping that we can move this conversation after having public input to how do we make change. Because I believe that the citizens want to see some kind of change, and they want to believe in law enforcement. Is there a timetable that has been set on, based on recommendations of this conversation today, that we will implement some changes, whether they're small changes or major changes? And then how will we measure the success of some of those changes?
Well, and to answer your question, I think we're trying to change every day. I talked about the Dave Mason and some of the things that we're doing. I'm constantly pushing the organization for those changes and seeing. How to quantify them is a two-sided equation. Certainly, I can show progress in the police department through training, through additional skills, whatever, but the end result is the relationship that we have with the community. I'll give you an example of the ways that we're trying to measure that. We're participating in a national study, and it's not just St. Louis, it's around the country. Basically, University of Chicago is talking about perceptions inside law enforcement of police officers juxtaposed against perceptions in the community. We send out each week a couple of hundred customer service surveys, if you will, to members of the community that have an interaction with law enforcement, and we're in the process of taking that feedback. I will say most of the interactions that we're measuring right now are on the property crime side. If you have a burglary, how did the officer respond, those types of things. So I am aware of that. I am trying to find a way to quantify it. But ultimately, the people behind us are the ones that will help us quantify that, and they have to be engaged in the conversation. That's why I think this morning, the chance for us to talk and for you to hear from us, I think this afternoon, for you to hear from the people, it's all part of the process. And we both sides of the equation, have to be willing to change, have to be willing to realize that there are all different points of view. Doesn't make them right, doesn't make them wrong, but there are different points of view. And then how do we synthesize that to get to the best possible spot? We change every day. This policy is an example of a change for the betterment, I think, but quantifying it is something that's much harder.
Okay, and after today, will we actually document moving forward some of the changes? I think we document it, and let me use an example of deadly force. You said last year, or this year was 6?
6 year to date, yes.
And last year was how many?
I believe 12.
12, okay. So to me, that's a good thing. So then my objective would be to how do we get it to 0 next year? And I know that's a lofty goal, but listen, if you did 3, if you reduce from 6 to 3, then we're making progress. I mean, and that came from something, through the training, through new policies and whatever. That's where I'm just trying to go with, some measurable outcomes. And I think if we're looking to get to 0, honestly, in our heart, then psychologically, as we perform our duties on an everyday basis, we will probably minimize and get closer to 0. 1 is certainly too many.
And I agree. So let's talk about the totality and the bigger picture. We can certainly have the conversation about change here, and we're all in for the change, and I get that. There's a variable out there in the community that we don't control. And so to say our goal is to get to 0, I agree. Our goal should be 0. It should be a negative number if we could do negative numbers. But the reality is a lot of these instances are not driven by the individuals that wear the uniform. They're driven by others. What I think we could do is an action step, and just as an example, and perhaps the board or the committee would see it differently, but finding ways to have outcomes through the judicial process that keeps all of us safer, whether it's a citizen or a police officer. That's really what we want to do. At the end of the day, and I agree with Alderwoman Tyus, it's about the citizenry, it's about everybody. I did not purposefully exclude anyone, because I do believe that we provide a service, we keep people safe, and at the end of the day, everybody, police officers, citizens, have the right to go home and be safe. But let's just talk about the use of guns in the city of St. Louis. Gun violence in the country is called an epidemic right now by the CDC. For almost the entire time that I've been chief, I've been asking the circuit court to have some meaningful engagement. They haven't. Perhaps a resolution from the Board of Aldermen or this committee challenging the judges to engage in a more meaningful way. Those are the types of things that I think that together as a city and as a citizenry, if we're representing all that, I don't think anybody in this room is a supporter of gun violence. Let's make sure that we are all moving that in the right direction. So maybe the Board of Aldermen sends a message across the street to the 22nd Judicial Circuit, which represents the city of St. Louis, and say enough is enough. Let's work together on having real outcomes that keep the city safe.
Right, and I agree. Trying to get to the root cause is the biggest issue, and I do believe, and thank you for bringing that up, that our judicial system certainly plays a bigger role in helping us do that, because some people have some real big issues. And if we can help support them with the true issues, the inner workings of what's going on with them, I think we have a lot better outcomes.
And by outcomes, I just want to be clear, because everybody takes what I say literally. Outcomes don't necessarily mean incarceration. They mean jobs, new skill sets, substance abuse training, the whole gamut, the whole spectrum. But we need to engage not as the police, not as the Board of Aldermen, not as the courts, but as a city to try and find those solutions and those resolutions.
Let me ask you this, Chief. A lot of the crimes are occurring is with our young people. Do you think that the city should make a priority to fund job training, at least in the summertime, for our young people?
I think, and this is a great question. If I wasn't a police officer, I wanted to be an economist. And so I believe economics are the way to cause real change. But economics just aren't jobs. They're real change. We'll talk about development along that central corridor, Cortex, IKEA, the change from McCreetown to Botanical Heights, that's right. Those are real changes. Paul McKee's development, real change. So jobs are a piece of it, but a summer job might give job skills, but that's not the change. Sustainable, ongoing economic change. That's really what is driving the change. I believe a significant change in crime in the city of St. Louis. Officers do a great job. Economics is a real piece of it too.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
All right. Alderman French.
Hey, Chief, how are you?
Very good.
Good. So first I want to address comments I made earlier by my friend Alderman Carter. I disagree a little bit. I didn't feel used out there. I mean, I might have a different take on it than Alderman Carter, and that my feeling, I always take what you guys say with a little bit of grain of salt.
Okay.
I believe in...
And I believe you should. I think healthy skepticism is good.
I believe in trust but verify. So I don't take anything you guys say at face value. But I know that what I told those folks were true. And what I told those folks was that the city of St. Louis is not the city of Ferguson. And that the city of Ferguson did not have city officials that had their backs. And that in the city of St. Louis, we do. And I think you've seen some of those folks, and the people in the community have seen some of those folks here today speaking on behalf of the community. What we also promised them is that we were going to get to the bottom of this case. And we weren't going to leave it up to you guys to do it, is that we were going to do our jobs too. And I think one of the problems here is that, now that we have local control, getting local control was only half the battle. The Board of Aldermen has not done its job, which is then put in those new policies and new laws to actually bring accountability. In fact, we now have less accountability in the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department than probably at any time in 200 years. We don't have, at least they used to have, a body of citizens, even though it was appointed by the governor, who every month you guys will have to come to and be accountable to. The feeling down here, as expressed by the chairwoman, is that this committee is not supposed to be that. I disagree with that. And I think that it is going to be part of our duties, in addition to body cams, in addition to civilian review boards, is to create policies down here at the Board of Aldermen that provide some level of oversight of the police department, which we do not have today. And as an example of that, can you walk me through the process of how you changed the policy on the use of force and it never came to the Board of Aldermen? It never came to the Public Safety Committee. Who signs off when you change the policy of the use of deadly force in the police department?
Well, and let's be clear. The use of force policy that you're looking at, the last 3 sections were my changes, things that I implemented.
So you do that unilaterally?
I do, yes. Just like the appointing authority for the Parks Department, the Street Department, the Water Department, the Airport, BPS.
Now, under the old system, wouldn't you have had to go through the police board to approve a policy change?
No, there are, and let's kind of talk through it for a second. There was the police manual, which was created by the Board of Police Commissioners. The police manual talked about things about purchasing, about the disciplinary process, high level stuff. The purview of the chief was to draft special orders, and what you see is a special order that would have been drafted by Ron Henderson, Joe Mokwa, Dan Isom, Sam Dotson. So the piece of paper that you have in front of you right now, this was always under the purview of the chief of police. These level of changes would not have gone to the Board of Police Commissioners.
Let me ask Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray, can you weigh in on this? On the old days when you were on the police board, would you guys have not wanted to see a change to policy before it was implemented?
Special orders were done all the time that we did not see.
So
But
but
even
it's his
when-
choice to do it by special order. It could also have been through normal procedure, right?
Normal, explain, I'm sorry.
A normal approval of policy by the police board.
Well, when they do special orders, and Chief can speak on that better, but I know under Chief Eisen and as well as Chief Dotson, the special orders never came to the board itself.
Well, we will want to change that under the new system, okay? Any changes to the, especially the use of deadly force, I think should come in front of a body and at least have some public input. In the same way as you guys are now privately working on a civilian review board, and I understand that Alderman Kennedy is participating in that, and he's a great representative of the community. And when you guys finally work that out, it will come in front of the board and we can discuss it. But I'll remind you that this is the same administration that vetoed a civilian review board back in 2006. And so it's just not that much faith and trust that you guys will be pushing for, and I say you guys, not just the police department, but also the administration, will be pushing for a version of a civilian review board that will be acceptable to the community. And so that, I think, is going to be a longer conversation, and it should be started immediately because people want to see this change quickly. Specifically with the Powell case, I just want to go back here. So, according to your testimony, there is only one investigation you can say is currently going on.
Because I don't speak for the circuit attorney of the
I
US.
understand
Yeah.
that. So the only
In the Metropolitan Police Department, technically there are 2, but they're both being conducted. Internal investigation for policies and practices violation, and then investigation of the incident itself.
And when do we expect those to be completed?
I will look for a timeline. I will tell you, as I kind of answered over here, long, thorough, detailed months. But let me, that incident happened less than a month ago now. We're still several months away from having a final product, which would include autopsy, toxicology, a variety of things. So those are still several months down the road.
And when you say toxicology, is that of both the victim and the officers?
In our current situation, the toxicology is just for the suspect. Officers do not submit to blood tests. I don't believe in this investigation. I don't believe they do. Or urine test, blood test, they do not submit to that.
Okay. And what happens to those officers in the meantime? Are they on administrative leave, paid administrative leave? What's going on with them?
The policy is that immediately after the shooting, the officers are placed on paid administrative leave for a 3-day period. During that 3-day period, they're required to visit the psychologist, the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist makes an evaluation if they are fit to be returned to duty. If they are deemed so, then they are returned to duty. And in this case, those officers were returned to duty.
Okay. And so, so it's going to be several months before that case resolved.
I hear you about the desire to have it done expediently. I don't disagree. I would like to have all of the facts in front of me, too. I just, in this case, to Alderwoman Tyus's point, and I hear her, I heard her, I want to make sure it's thorough and detailed. And I don't typically, during the course of investigation, say, hurry up, get it done, hurry up and get it done. I want to make sure it's right. And so I hear you about the desire to have it done, but I also hope you hear me that my desire to have it done accurately is very important to me.
Sure, and I just think that we all have our parts to play, and while you have yours to do, we also have ours to do. And I think a lot of work needs to be done down in the City Hall and specifically in this Board of Aldermen to create a new level of accountability and oversight that actually restores people's faith in the police department. Because the lack of faith in the police department and the number of fatal shootings and use of lethal force has consequences. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Everything has consequences, so I do agree with that.
And so, in many times when we've asked you to come down here and report on crime statistics, you know, one of the statistics I often ask about is the closure rate of homicides. How few homicides in the city are actually solved. How many murderers go free in the city. Often I've heard you say, in some way or form or another, say part of the blame is on the community for not coming forward. And I want to explain to you that the actions of the last few weeks and these cases that we see repeatedly of arguably police abuse, it damages that trust and it makes all our jobs more difficult. And we won't get people coming forward and trusting police with information that could endanger their own lives if we don't restore that trust. And so, you know, separate from police brutality and instances of lethal force, we're making it more difficult to solve regular homicides. We're making it more difficult to solve regular cases, and that has a direct impact on quality of life in our communities.
And I agree with you. And I just hope when you say we're talking about the greater community and the whole, the lack of confidence in the criminal justice system as a whole all has an impact on that. And I don't want to, I'll take the piece of it that belongs to the police department. I don't want to rest that whole equation, that whole problem on the back of law enforcement.
And we're talking specifically the last few weeks. It's a big piece. And I think it is going to be part of the responsibility of not just you and the St. Louis City Police Department, but St. Louis County, especially St. Louis County, and these small municipalities to try to restore that faith. Otherwise, you know, St. Louis is going to be an even more unsafe place for all of us.
And I think that we agree. I think we all have a job to do to help educate the public about the things that we do well, the areas that we have to grow. There was no, and you watched the Twitter sphere as much as I did over the last couple of weeks, people were not differentiating the Metropolitan Police Department from St. Louis County, from Ferguson. We were all lumped together. Do we have room to improve? Absolutely, we do. But I also think that these conversations are happening in the city of St. Louis. People need to realize that we're trying to move the city of St. Louis forward in ways that perhaps other cities aren't.
But as you know, we have many of the same problems. Same circumstances and same issues between community and police that they have out there. You guys may not do as many speeding tickets, but we do have our own problems and a lot of work to do. Agreed.
And we also have a portion of the citizenry that is supportive of the process as well. We don't always hear from them. They're the silent majority in some cases, the silent minority on others. But certainly when we have the conversation, everybody needs to have a voice in that.
Sure. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Vaccaro?
Yeah, just a couple comments. And I keep going back to the fact that my son's in homicide, and I don't think he looks at anything along race. I think he looks at a crime as a crime. He does everything he can to solve the crime. There may be some distrust in the police, but I also know that there's fear of retaliation from the gang people in the neighborhood. I'm in the Big Brothers program, and my little brother had his friend shot on his lawn and died in his house. And I know there was I think they were more afraid of the retaliation from within the community than they were of anything that was going on with the police. I also wanted to mention that my son, I don't know on every homicide, but I know for... What?
Excuse me. Let's just
I'm making my
hold the
comment.
comments. The Alderman has the right. The public will be invited to speak at another session in a few minutes.
I'm just making my comments that my son has attended the funerals of a lot of those homicide, and I don't know if that's a practice of all the different police, but he goes and he actually starts a relationship with the family because he feels bad for this. So I'm just telling you that as a community, we have to work together. I don't care if it's north, south, east, or west, but as a community, in order to solve this, we have to work together. And, you know, I guess it bothers me because I know my son works hard at trying to solve crimes, and he doesn't take race into consideration while working on that crime. He gets witnesses that, for whatever reason, fear or whatever, change their mind. People that say, yes, I witnessed this crime, and then they change their mind. I'm just telling you, there's a lot more to the equation than, it's not all one-sided. There's a lot more to this equation, and if we don't come together as a community, this will never end.
Okay, I believe Alderman Arnowitz has left. Alderman Hubbard? No further questions. Alderman Carter?
Just one or two. Just in terms, and I think that French asked, well, I don't know if he asked the specific question that I'm asked, but mainly just in terms, and I think I ask you this every time you come, and you always give a great answer. Just in terms of rebuilding the brand of SLPD, is there a plan in place to rebuild? Because as I've talked to folks and generally young African American males about, you know, what they think about the police department and things like that, is not a positive a message relayed back. So I just, you know, want to see if there is a plan to move forward,
Yeah,
and if so.
And that's a great question, because we haven't hired a PR firm to go out and create a plan. My hope is that by doing more training, implicit bias policing, by doing programs like the neighborhood ownership model, by doing police athletic league, by having officers walk footbeats, by our action, we start to rebuild that trust. We didn't get to where we are overnight. I am a strong, firm believer in the cops' philosophy. I think we also have to look at society. When I was growing up, hey, if I did something wrong at the end of the block, the neighbors took me home to my mom, and on the way, they were paddling my behind and saying, hey, little Sammy did this. Now we see with cyber, or the cyber world we live in, people don't know who their neighbors are. They are not outside as often as they are. And if somebody and we get calls like this, so I'm just basing it on my experience. Hey, the neighbor touched my kid. The neighbor did this. The neighbor did that. And there's not that sense of community. So I think we have to build that sense of community externally. I have to build it internally. So when the two come together, we have great dialogues. You've been to neighborhood meetings at our area stations before for each of the districts. Those are the people that are involved. Mm-hmm. I wish we had 10 times as many people that would come to the meetings, because that means we're getting more and more people involved. Those are the types of things. I think conversation and dialogue like this. I'll go out to any group, and I've told you this, anytime you have a meeting, anytime you have an event, and to all the alder people, anytime you have an event, I'll be there to try and help do this. But I'm also going to bring the officers that work in the area with me, because it's not, the police department isn't Sam Dotson. It's the almost 1,300 men and women that make up the department, and the community has to know who they are, has to trust them. That's what I want to see. So training, outreach programs, and programs that reach into the youth programs. We also do gang interventions. Ronnie Robinson, who couldn't be here today, but as a major, does great work in North Patrol. For those of you that don't know, Major Rochelle Jones on Monday took over South Patrol, so now she's in charge of the 1st and 2nd districts in South St. Louis. So I'm doing outreach programs. Major Jones shares my philosophy about that, Major Robinson, Major Caruso, they all do. but we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to fix it overnight, but I'll be at any meeting, any conversation, and try anything that has value.
Right. In terms of the, what was it? Was it, you said around 1.2 million spent in Ferguson just with overtime and things like that?
Overtime and equipment, about, yeah, just over $1 million.
In terms of the money spent there, has there ever been a conversation about us not, well, putting extra resources in the cities, in certain neighborhoods that have higher crime than others? Because if, you know, my whole thought process is if we found 1.2 million to spend to help out Ferguson, we could have also found it to help Goodfellow Wells, Waldner Park, O'Fallon. And so, you know, I just wanted to ask you, has it ever been a thought of doing something like that as well?
And
because some of these areas do need extra help.
And
I know Waldner Park does.
I agree, and so I'll talk about it from the piece that I can do. That's why I believe in hotspot policing. We do things in neighborhoods that have problems to try and address that. When we didn't find the $1.2 million, we spent the $1.2 million. Some of it, and I'll get the exact number, I don't know, is base salary. So some of it is base salary. Not all of it is overtime. But that's a little bit outside of police and law enforcement to be able to say, what else can we do in those neighborhoods? Hey, just like you, I've got a million suggestions that I can offer up. Right. We've talked about asset forfeiture money in the past. The federal government has changed the calculation at which we can share money with community partners. They've unfortunately reduced it. They didn't go the other way, they reduced it. Right now there is an RFP out soliciting community-based programs to spend, but what I was hoping would be $100,000 is probably more like $25,000 now. Not because Sam Dotson and the Metropolitan Police Department chose to change. The equitable sharing program at the federal level changed the percentage that can be spent on community-based programs. So yes, I always look for opportunities. I always look for partnerships. Demetrius Johnson Foundation, Better Family Life, anybody that has a program going on that we can partner with, I will. We write support letters for those programs all the time to try and get them additional grant funding. It's out there, but some of it's mission creep, too broad for us, but we're there whenever we can be.
Okay. Alderwoman Ingracia? All right, Chief, we thank you for your time here.
And
I think that this has been an important conversation for my committee and the board to have today, and I'm glad the public came to hear what the parameters are, and I'm sure we will be talking in the future. So thank you for your knowledge and your time here.
Thank you, and just on behalf of myself and the command staff that's here in the entire department, I believe this conversation is good. I will be here anytime that we want to talk about a topic and an issue. Transparency is an overused word right now, but I want you and the public to have as much understanding as they can about their police department, about where we're trying to do, what we're trying to do, and conversely, I need to understand how those things are being perceived in the community, because sometimes what we're trying, if it's perceived wrong in the community, is not having the desired result, and we need to make adjustments, educate people, whatever the answer is. So I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a break, and we will be back here at 1:30 for anyone from the public to speak to us.
Where does the public sign up to speak?
And I have the sign-up sheets here, and I'll put them right out there. I didn't want to put them out earlier because I know some people who would sign up would not be able to stay later. So we will be back here at 1:30 to hear from you. Thank you.
Ask you to print your name and address.
Goodness.
Terry Powers, 24th Ward Committee Woman. I know my face and my story are familiar to the people on the Aldermanic Public Safety Committee meeting, but for those of you in the audience who are not familiar, I am a licensed clinical social worker who works with the chronically mentally ill. I'm married to a police officer, have a brother and brother-in-law who are retired police officers, and a son who is 100% service-connected from the Gulf War, who was in military intelligence, who was the first of the 15 people shot by police in the year 2011. And that situation involved someone from 2nd District with crisis intervention training, responding to a call that wasn't his. He was seen getting out of his van with his gun drawn, so there's no attempt to subdue my son with anything other than a command. Before he shot my son, fortunately, he shot my son in the thigh, which was enough for my son to fall to the ground and then be apprehended. Part of my son's psychiatric problem is a delusion, because he was in military intelligence during Desert Storm, Gulf War, is that he's a spy. And being shot, and what he recalls is the officer called his name, and then he felt the gunshot. So that's only deepened his psychotic state. So over the past 3 years, I've had quite an education about our police department, about our criminal justice system, and the deficits in the Criminal Justice Center on Hall Street. And I'm here today, I am gratified to hear that there's work being done for a Citizens Oversight Review Board, because I think it's mandatory to overcome the mistrust people have of police for a variety of reasons. I miss the days of Officer Friendly. I don't know what happened to the Officer Friendly program, but we need to reinstitute that. It's been great to see on Facebook and in the media an officer stopping and getting a pair of shoes for a homeless person, or playing ball with children out in Ferguson weeks after the death of Mike Brown. But the racial issue and the blatant mistrust of our law enforcement cannot be skirted over. Another big concern to me, I wear many hats. In addition to being a committee woman and a licensed clinical social worker and a mother, I'm on the advocacy board of NAMI, because, as Jackie Lickage said, you know a lot of people. I knew a few people 3 years ago, and I've made it my business to research very deeply what is happening in our own community and across the nation in terms of how likely it is for mentally ill people to be incarcerated rather than receiving medical treatment. A conversation I just had with someone, we're talking about the fact that a lot of people don't know to call and say, I need a CIT officer. Calling and saying my husband is urinating in the kitchen isn't enough of a clue. Well, perhaps our dispatchers need better training and better discernment as to what kind of a call to send out and what type of officer to dispatch to a scene. To provide preventative services before you have someone who's well known in the community for mental illness, even though he's only been in the community for a short time, and he stole a soda and he's got a steak knife, and that's his death warrant? I don't think so. I think there are a lot of cracks in the system that need to be overcome. And we need to get away from use of deadly force. I work in a hospital setting. We are not allowed to restrain our patients, not under any circumstances. And we de-escalate every day, verbally. Now, they're not all there as thugs. Some of them are. Some of them have come to us with a long criminal history. It's more likely there's substance abuse where they're self-medicating on mental illness. But we need to back off of deadly force. I am really thrilled to hear that there will be a Citizens Overview Review Board. We need accountability. We need Officer Friendly back, going to the grade schools, making a friendly overture to children so that they don't have a view of, yeah, that police officer shot that man and his body's been laying there for 4.5 hours uncovered while his mother is on the sidewalk viewing it and restrained. These are heinous things, and I know there are shades of gray. We've got to deal with the racism. We've got to deal with the stigma against mental illness. We've got to provide treatment for substance abuse. And if it's mission creep for our police to put on a social worker's hat and begin to think, I'm dealing with a case of something definitely not right before they shoot. St. Louis County, I've talked to a number of officials out there, and they have a totally different appreciation for crisis intervention training. We're being told half of our officers have CIT training. I recently had a conversation with the captain over the 2nd District because I had gotten a phone call with a long-distance number wanting to know if I was Tripp's mom and was he at home. Who are you? Well, we've gotten a call that he's walking through the neighborhood, someone matching his physical description, wearing a kilt and carrying a shotgun. Well, it pushed a button because his kilt, after I got it back out of evidence and had it dry cleaned, had 2 bullet holes in it, and he threw it away. And no one in my family has a weapon. So, being who I am, I contacted Chief Dotson, I contacted Mary Warnicki, and I contacted the captain of the 2nd District. And he said, oh, I'm so glad to hear you've got guardianship and your son's on medication, but he's just as likely to walk out the front door and disappear. I didn't say the medication is a monthly injection of Haldol that leaves him in a stupor, but he's not likely to walk out my front door and disappear, and I said it's more likely he'd walk out my front door and be killed by one of your officers. I can relate to Mike Brown's mother. Thank you.
Gwen Cogshell?
Gwendolyn Cogshill, University African People's Organization. My question and comments was to Mr. Dotson, Officer Dotson, but as you can see, they don't care what the people have to say. That's why they're not present, because they don't care what the people have to say.
Excuse me, I asked the chief to be here for 3 hours today. I did not ask him to stay long.
Could he have a representative?
This only came up yesterday that we decided that we would have you all talk to us.
Okay.
So that's what we're here for.
So anyway, I just feel like the police department needs, when you become a police officer, you need to have a psychiatric evaluation. I don't think because you grew up looking at guns and robbers that you feel like when I grow up, I'm gonna be a police officer. I think anybody that gets a gun in their hand needs to have a psychiatric evaluation. So I think that needs to be inputted if you have a civilian report, number one. Number two, I blame the media for portraying African Americans as thugs. I blame them more than anybody because see, my nephews, both of them, got a 4.0 from SLU, but you're not going to put them in the media, but every time you turn on the news, all you have is murders and African Americans committing crimes. You never have anything positive. And last but not least, this policing has got to stop in our community. I was outside the other day and a police officer came down the street with a computer checking everybody's license plates to see if they had tickets. They don't do that in Chesterfield. They don't do that in Ladue. They come and give all males tickets for doing urination and drinking in a public place. Then they go to court and say, oh, he has a ticket he hasn't paid. And then he gets there and he can't pay that ticket. And then he gets another ticket and it just goes on and on and on. So this window, what they call window broken policing, has to stop. Mike Brown was profiled. My nephew was profiled. That's how it all started, with profiling, and it has to stop. My nephew, like I said, is a 4.0 student. He's been humiliated and put on the ground. Why? Was he committing a crime? No, because he had a white t-shirt on and some blue jeans on his way to class. So this kind of stuff, and she already mentioned about the mentally ill and how they betray in society. These people down here at the 7-Eleven, they are mentally ill. A lot of them are veterans. A lot of them are just been put out by their families. So this police department have to be retrained, because I found out in my research that if the municipalities don't have the money, they don't all get the same training. If they don't have the money, then they don't get trained. What is 40 hours of training? I get that more, and I work at the post office. And so I just feel like they're not trained properly, and all of this needs to be addressed.
Thank you for your comments. I don't think you'll find anybody here who disagrees with you, and congratulations to your nephews on their grades. That's amazing. Anthony Bell. I would like it to be normal for every kid.
How you all doing? My name is Anthony Bell, and I'm the 3rd Ward Committee man here in the city of St. Louis. And I'd like to commend some of the officials that's up here that's been outstanding, and I've known over the years for making some differences in the city of St. Louis and some of the legislation they have passed. The 1st Ward Committee woman, Alderwoman now. She stayed with us so long as committee, I still could say committee woman, but she's an Alderwoman. She's an Alderwoman. She's a great woman too. And Brother Terry Kennedy, I worked with him on his first campaign. And also Brother French here, who's been with us since almost day 3 out at Ferguson out there helping out. And Chris Carter here, I've been knowing for years also. You know, he's a young man that's been changed office 3 times. He's a very good guy. And these are people that are known to speak up and speak out, along with Jeffrey Boyd here. I've been knowing him for quite some time. And again, I'm here for the reason whereas I sit in and I listen to some of the things that were spoken about that really touched me. And what's really, we need to really change is that some of our ways as far as the police department, how we handle situations. And I think it's been clarified mostly through Brother French over here, how they should do it. And I agree with him 100% if you were sitting in on how he addressed the problem with the police department. He was there when us out there in Ferguson, when we all got gassed by the police and everything. He was out there trying to keep the peace and to keep the calm. And so my point is this: I'm concerned about a citizen review board. That's my main concern here in the city of St. Louis. Ferguson need one also. That would be one of the biggest problems we need, and the biggest thing we need to happen in the city of St. Louis, a citizen review board. That's basically what I have to say right now.
Thank you. Craig Sandrit Leatherman.
My name's Craig Scandrett Leatherman. I'm from Devonshire Avenue in St. Louis. On January of 2013, I went to a Peabody protest about 3 blocks from here, and there were about probably 60 protesters and about 70 police officers, largely armed and kind of covered with, I don't know what it is, extra special weaponry and protection. And it was an event where people had come from Vermont to describe how their communities and their water had been destroyed by the mining practices of Peabody Coal. There were people from Black Mesa, Arizona, who were here to describe that they had been displaced by Peabody Coal, and there were union workers who had been disinvested of their pension and health benefits because of Peabody Coal had spun out another company and then declared it bankrupt. So these people were here in town asking for a meeting with Craig Boyce, and there had been some communication with one of his representatives that there would at least be a meeting with this representative, but that was terminated. And so at this event, it was going to happen anyway, regardless of how, because it was a public education event. At this event, there were 70 people, stories were told, and then maybe 10 people crossed a barrier, there have been very significant barriers set up to deliver a letter to Peabody Cole, to Craig Boyce, asking to meet with these people because it hadn't happened otherwise. When these people crossed the line, the police immediately kind of came down on them, and they sat down. And then after maybe 3 to 5 minutes, the police said, okay, you're under arrest. They had just crossed the barrier. People asked for access to somebody there who they could talk to, or a deliverance of the letter. Police were not interested in that kind of communication or process of law. So the chant, at some point, when they asked them to get up, they didn't do it, and the policemen started twisting arms, twisting hair, twisting ears. Somebody's shoulder was displaced, and I was right at the barricade, and the chant turned from whatever it was about Peabody to the police saying, who do you protect and who do you serve? And I was yelling that very loudly because I was very angry. I had never been that close, though I had heard African American friends tell about police brutality in alleys. I had never been right there in front of me seeing this happen. So I was yelling very loudly, who do you protect? Who do you serve? And everybody else was yelling it as well. And that's my question today as well. But what happened to me then, as I was yelling this, I wasn't across the barriers, I was not touching a policeman, I was only using my voice, although I was swinging my finger. Somebody grabbed me by this, whatever you call this part of my collar, and said, well, if you care so much about this, why don't you join them? And he grabbed me there. 3 other policemen joined on with them, pulled me over the barricade, took me up on some steps, threw me down. There were about 9 officers around me. One put his boot on my neck. There was just no way that I could have gotten away or resisted arrest. I just want to make this clear, with 9 policemen on me. My glasses fell off. I reached out to grab them so I could put them in my pocket. One of the officers reached down and just crushed my glasses. And then the paddy wagon was off this way, and there was a marble monument this way, and they picked me up and said, you're too old for this. Grabbed me by the back of my neck and took me towards that marble monument. I'm convinced that that action was to beat my head into that thing, and that those patterns of behavior were developed on the north side of St. Louis against young African American men. And the only thing that stopped him was not my whiteness, but was the presence of so many cameras around there that prevented that from happening. Now, another problem that happened, I was able to hire a lawyer who was able to take this up for $1,500 or something until we figured this out. And he said that, well, we'll lose in the municipal court. It's just the way it is. There's this cooperation, municipal police, municipal court. And that's what happened. The judge basically charged me as guilty. Oh, by the way, I was charged with trespassing, resisting arrest, and interfering with traffic. And the judge finally realized that I was innocent, but he still needed to cooperate with the police. And so gave me a sentence that I decided not to appeal, which was remove the charges and reduce the fine to 20 hours of community service, which is about as low as you could get. So my appeal to this committee, since the policemen aren't here to hear the story, is that you indeed, on our behalf as citizens, all of us, interject yourself into these policies, and to make sure that there is an independent, this testimony we heard about the police investigating their own issues is disturbing and disgusting. And we need an independent board. We need a court system that is also acts independent. And so I encourage you in your job. I urge you to take it on. And we can't have any kind of peace if the people who are here to protect us are harassing our youth on the north side of St. Louis. There's already economic difficulties, there's problems with schools, there's problems with poverties and homes, and to have the policemen adding to that kind of abuse and terrorizing our communities is irrepressible. So I ask you to stay on this task and do something about this on behalf of the citizens, that this not be allowed to just be a police internal process, that they determine their own policies and have no oversight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Stamps?
Madam, may I ask him one question? You're not asking, could I ask him one question?
One question?
Okay, thank you. Did you file a complaint with the Internal Affairs Division?
I did not.
You did not? Okay, thank you.
Ronald Stamps?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ronald Stamps. I'm a
You wanna
member
pull
of
the-
a number of community organizations.
Pull it down. There.
So therefore, I'm speaking on my behalf and some other people, the ones that are downtrodden and normally abused, neglected, and never understood for what they actually are, that is human beings. On the other hand, the police seem to see them as objects of ridicule, something to be joked at, laughed at, so therefore they don't have no respect for them. They taking the man that, since you're busy killing each other, what's the difference in killing one more of them? So therefore, I find it hardly unacceptable that the police be allowed to do some of the things that they do and not be held accountable for their actions, because you and I, when we do things, we're held accountable for our actions. So therefore, I want them to be responsible for what they do. And I'm not talking about because 2 or 3 days suspension and you back on the job killing somebody else or mistreating somebody else. I feel like they should be off the job until they've been cleared of what they've done. And they should not be being paid for doing what they did. If it goes against mistreating another human being, being whatever color they may be.
Thank you. Howard Shelton. Howard Shelton. Is that you?
How y'all doing today?
Fine.
All right. Now, I'm curious, do y'all come into the neighborhoods where some of these situations are happening? Do you all? I know. I'm kind of trying to see what type of group of people we have here. Or do we have people that are for the people or for their ulterior motives? You know, because everybody knows, you know, you all are getting paid to have a job. Now, is your job being done for the community, or are you doing it because you would like to have that nice house in Ladue, or to like have that nice vehicle you drive? You know, I'm trying to find out, because most of the times, the people that I know, they don't have these luxuries. They don't have the same luxuries that's to be able to have a nice a job just to start with. And you know, everybody's here. If you weren't here or weren't able to fend for your family, you would have to go about it by another means. Now, if they have already been part of the system that has psychologically messed them up, because I'm gonna tell you something like this. I have been part of, I have helped and protested and stood my ground for things I believe in. And I have had police brutality as well. I've been maced, beat up, and abused in a way that I didn't think it should have been possible for another human being to do another one. And when I said, what am I doing? I'm not doing anything. They said, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And for a police officer to say that to me is strong, because I would think you would be the ones to protect me, but they're not. And if we want to make a change on this, you also have to realize people mentally are going to be affected, because same way that this situation happened to me, I have a strong mind, but I was at a point where I was ready to break. And still now, it's like, well, what do you do when you look and know that you can't do anything? It's like an ultimate bully. They have so much stuff about bullies, but the police are the biggest bullies because you can't do anything to them. How can you fight back somebody that you'll get arrested for or killed? And I'm trying to find out how we can do that, how we can go about this. You know, you look like you're tired, man. You all right? You look like you need to drink some of that Pepsi or something.
I'm fine, I'm just listening.
Oh, okay, got it.
And just as a point real quick.
Yeah.
Every one of us live in our neighborhoods. We don't live in Ladue. We live in the neighborhood that we represent. And yes, I've been to multiple neighborhoods,
Do
including
you talk to people in that neighborhood?
Yes.
How?
How?
How would you go up and talk to a...
Okay,
you see-
wait, let's end that. You were to testify to us what your concerns are.
Yeah,
and that's
I
what we're
am.
doing.
And he started asking me a question, so I was responding. Isn't that how it works?
No, you know, each of us represent a district.
Right.
We are out in that district. We know
What
what's
district do
going
you
on.
represent?
I represent the 7th Ward.
Okay.
So my
Where
job
do
is
you go
always
normally in
to
the 7th
listen.
Ward?
I'm sorry?
I said, where do you normally canvass or talk to people in the 7th Ward?
I attend all my neighborhood meetings.
Do the people that are less fortunate, that don't know about these neighborhood meetings, are they available to or able to come to them?
Sure.
How, do you tell them about them?
I go over into, I'm doing the same thing that he was doing. I go into my neighborhoods. My neighborhoods are LaSalle Park Village. My neighborhood is the old Darce Webbing. My neighborhood is Fox Park. My neighborhood is McKinley Heights. My neighborhood is Soulard. My neighborhood is Lafayette Square. My neighborhood is downtown. So, yes, I canvass my neighborhood routinely, as do all of us. So we all do the public's work. And the reason for being here today is to listen to you.
I'm not even gonna believe that.
So tell me what your concerns are. I'm hearing them, but tell me more.
My concerns are, it's a bunch of people that do not communicate with the people. That's the problem. Like, just the same way the Officer Dotson was here, how was he not available or make a time to be available to talk to the people in the community? You have to nip it in the bud. You know, everybody, here's my thing. My biggest problem is, I've gone a lot of places down south, and a lot of people down there, they're racist, and they admit it. But in Missouri, they don't. People know it, but they won't admit it. And that's my thing, like, come on, I'm not blind, you know?
Okay.
How do you think we can change that?
That's why we're here today, to listen to you all as our constituents and to listen to the chief to find out what the platform is that they're working from, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Our job is to have conversations and to expand the
It's
conversation.
converse, not have a conversation. But here's the thing, though. If you are doing that, when will you be able to have a sit-down with people that are in the community that are trying to do some type of change and change action? I see you want to speak, you kind of want, go ahead, do your thing.
Because you can ask the president of the
We're
board.
not going there.
One
minute to sum up what you want to say, and then we're going to go on to the next person, because we
Okay,
have a
well,
lot
where
of
can I
people who
go
want to
and
speak.
have a conversation with you all in a seated room?
Where do you live?
I stay on Kings Highway in West Florissant.
Okay, you have an alderman. I don't know who.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
That's where to start the conversation.
But now,
1 minute.
if I want to help in other areas, your area, how can I help in your area?
Come on down.
What would I do?
I tell you that you could be helpful to me in the 6th Ward doing a participatory budgeting, which is something that we've undertaken in the 6th Ward to talk to a wider variety of people.
Because I understand.
Yeah, we took Board of Elections data of people who were not registered to vote or who were registered not showing up, overlaid it with some of our lowest income areas where we know people aren't accessing information.
Right, because people honestly that look like me will talk to people that look like me.
We did a door
quicker.
knocking campaign, and then the discretionary funds that I have in the ward for public spaces, those decisions were opened up for projects by the community, and then the community voted on those.
Okay, and when you do have something for the 7th Ward, let me know. I will be available, because I don't have a job.
Okay, Rasheen? I think it's Aldridge?
Hi, my name is Shane Aldridge. I also go by Michael Brown, and I also stay in Ground Zero. I want to thank majority of the aldermen and elected officials who have been up here, who have been with me and my younger colleagues as we've been out there standing for our rights in Ferguson. Antonio, I can go down the list, but I'm not going to, give you, anywho. Some things that I want to talk about is we're trying to figure out how do we solve the disconnect, how do we figure out what is the problem. The problem is that majority of the people on the Board of Aldermen don't care. The police don't clearly care because Sam Dotson's not here. When we was having this conversation earlier in the testimony, I heard a lot of the African American aldermen talk and give solutions, and I also heard several Caucasian aldermen speak as well. And there was a group that didn't speak and didn't have any input or anything on it, but for us to start trying to fix this, you guys have to care where we're coming from. You guys have to talk to us. The police have to care and know where we're coming from. They just can't say, oh, this is the problem, so how do we fix it without talking to us? They can't talk to just you guys. They need to be talking to the community. They need to be talking to the young folks. The young folks are the people who's going to be leading the next country in the next couple of months, in the next couple of years, in the next generation. And if you guys don't know where we're coming from, how can you do anything? That's one thing. Another thing, I want to go back to what someone said. I think a good idea, maybe, since I want to give you guys some type of solution, is that why we're here, is go back to that good cop, whatever little thing they used to have, where the cops used to come into the African American community, and they actually used to talk to the kids and used to hand them baseball cards, some type of conversation. Now it's I hop in my car and I'm driving down the street, I get pulled over and it says my car is suspicious of some car that's being stolen. Get me out the car, sit me on the ground, have 3 police and multiple police cruisers pull up with several police in the car, search the car, clean record. I don't have a clean record, and nothing. All that for what reason? We are being treated like animals out here. We are being treated like we don't have any rights. Because we don't have the privilege of being white, this is how we're treated. It's not fair. People won't take it no more. We need to do something about this issue because it's growing out of control. As I say, the older generation is dying off. The people who know their rights, the people who know what to do when a certain issue happens, as they're dying off, the police are just getting worse. They're saying these young black boys, they don't know their rights, they don't know what to do, so let's just kill them off anyway. I mean, if you look what happened and the Mike Brown or in the tragedy that happened here in the city, there's still no answer, there's still no justice served. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna continue to stand and protest, but it don't make sense how if I go and shoot any of those officers in the back of the room, I would be probably in handcuffs somewhere down at the Justice Center. But it was 2 officers that shot one man, and it's a video downstairs if anybody want to go check it out, slowly approaching the officers. Both officers have tasers, and there's no other way to stop this young man besides killing him. Do y'all just shoot to kill? Can you answer that? I mean, because the officers clearly can't. And I don't know if you're on behalf of Sam Dotson or you're representing him, but what is it? Are they, when they're shooting, are they shooting to kill, or are they shooting to wound? Like what is the?
They're shooting to disarm the threat. Excuse me.
I mean, you answer. Go ahead, I'm listening.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. That was a description that occurred this morning, and I think you were here for that when the chief was talking. We are not here to describe or defend either side, if there are separate sides. Our job here is to show you respect in that we're listening to you, and I think you are a wise young man in talking about how to reach younger people and get them involved in the community so that there is a communication going on, and I think that's a very good point. So I can't speak for the police department.
I just want you guys to really understand what it is to be in this time right now, a black young man in America, because I didn't know until this Mike Brown situation happened. We don't have no rights. We are treated like crap. They don't care about us. We only care about us. They are killing us left and right, and they're sitting behind what? The law. They are the law. They're not protecting us. They're not serving us. They're protecting and serving themselves. So who protects and serves us? It's not right that we have to continually die every single day, and then there's no answers. We wait months and months, and then what's gonna happen? Not guilty, or the swing never swings on the people's side. It never swings on the young black people's side. So we need to have real change. Y'all need to start listening to us young brothers. Y'all need to start caring about us young brothers. Y'all need to have these young brothers sitting in these positions to understand where we are coming from. And I know it's a lot of the young ones. You don't have to make your face, Miss Hubbard, but I know it's a lot of the young ones that are in the seats. But we need more. One thing I do want to say to Christine had said, participatory budgeting. Back to you, Ms. Hubbard. You know I was coming. I believe that we probably should have participatory budgeting in the 5th Ward because it gives the opportunity for young people to show their democratic process. We are able to know where the funds that you receive in the ward, and we can apply them to certain things that will affect. You don't have to get it brown. You can just listen. You don't have to.
Is this personal?
No. I'm just saying an idea from your constituent.
Okay.
From your constituent. Well, yeah, it's personal to you. Participatory budgeting would be a great thing. Thank you guys for the time. We need to get justice served in this community. If you guys want to see this stop, y'all need to start talking to these young brothers. Y'all need to be out here at the line with these young brothers, not taking photo ops. Be out there like Antonio has been out there talking with us, standing with us, and being just like Mr. Third man of the committee man of the 3rd Ward, Anthony Bell. So thank you.
Walter Rodriguez. Walter Rodriguez. Okay, Ivan Martin. Ivan Martin. Elizabeth Vega. Okay, I believe you're Ivan.
I'm Ivan Martin, live in the 6th District. Appreciate this opportunity to speak. And first of all, disappointed that I have to speak on this issue because Mr. Powell that I saw in that video, when I first saw that video, I was hoping I was seeing some TV show. Because that's what we see on TV. I don't expect it out of our police force. I looked like a gangland hit. Nothing short of that. I'm equally disappointed on how the police officers can pass a psychological test and be on the streets. I think that should devastate any officer trying to serve the people. It appeared to me that every option was available to those police officers, and the choices they made were not the optimum choices. Like I say, I wonder if that would have been handled that way in Clayton. I need to take a look around the room before I go on. The room's a little more diverse than I thought, because for some reason this city doesn't believe we have a race problem. At least not the Caucasian people that I run with, but not very much more, unfortunately. We need to talk about it. Maybe I'm here for personal reasons, too. I have 2 biracial sons, both been held up at gunpoint in the city. One's a biracial gay guy. Tell me how much more minority you can have than that. So naturally, I'm concerned about the police abuses, not only in our own locale, but I'm also concerned around the country, around the nation. It seems that it comes somewhat from the militarization of our police. We've glorified war, we've glorified killing people in other countries for over a decade now. Certainly some of that would come home. But I think you're challenged as aldermen and our representatives to help us make sure it doesn't come home. and it looks like more and more it has. People in the disadvantaged, who maybe only know violence, need to be helped the most. I spend some of my mornings, Saturday mornings, up at Better Family Life with the Put Down the Pistol program. I highly recommend it. It's very eye-opening. Certainly I'm not there to be a great white hope, but I would appeal to the leaders of the African-American community, the black community, to let's have dialogue. There's a lot of sympathy. There's also a lot of fear. And I'm sure maybe that many of the policemen are living in fear. I applaud all the representatives that work hard here. And I would like to know, though, from the police records, two things that maybe get publicized more. First of all, it only probably has to be publicized a few times. How much money has the city, in the city budget, has gone to militarization? How much? We ought to know that, because we don't have body cameras, but it looks like we've got plenty of tear gas and all that other stuff that goes along with terrorizing peaceful protesters. I'd also like to know, if my old mind doesn't give way, I'll come back to that. But most of all, I'd like to know also if the police have the right kind of weapons to maybe deter instead of to kill. I know one time the police were allowed to use riot guns. I thought those were outlawed. Maybe that needs to be re-examined again, if that could be a safer weapon to maybe take out the legs of somebody and still have them with life if they're that out of control and there are no other options. So I don't know if they've looked at that. But most of all, I'd also like to tell everybody we've got to work together. I know the gentleman up here was talking about his son, and there were remarks about his son that I didn't care to hear. But if we're all working for peace, we've got to understand that peace needs to be for everybody. And that's sometimes the hardest, is when you're demonizing groups of people that you forget that they're people. And I'd like to live the rest of my life in peace. I know there's resources in a lot of communities here, in a lot of neighborhoods, and I see big budgets. I hear these numbers in thousands of dollars that get devoted to projects in these neighborhoods that seem already safe. But I also know that there's neighborhoods that could use that money maybe more productively to put the youth and the young people back on path. And I know I'm running out of time, and I'm going to look right at the chair of this committee, because this is kind of hard for me to say. I wish you would recuse yourself from this committee. Sometimes when I hear you speak and run the committee, I don't know if we're getting what's best for the community. You may be better serving on another committee. I know your intentions are good, but sometimes the tight grip control that you use here does not let a free dialogue come forth, and I think we'd be better served by possibly you stepping aside and trying something else. So I appreciate your time, and as always, thanks for all your hard work.
Elizabeth Vega.
The first question that I have for this board that is standing here listening to the community is I want to hear from you what you know about Kajim Powell, the young man that was shot down. Tell me one little tidbit that you know about him. Do you know anything?
I'm sorry, you're testifying to us.
I am asking you, do you know who this young man was? Because you're sitting here as a political force and a body, and you do not know the heart of what this matter is. With your tight-lipped control and your blockade, I sat in the living room of a grieving grandmother whose grandson just moved here in December 2013 because he thought that St. Louis was his home because he was born here and he wanted to be closer to his grandmother. That young man is now on that grandmother's ancestor wall, the place that she holds for people who have passed. And as a mother and as a grandmother, I find it completely and outrageously offensive that we are playing politics with human lives. When that young man who got accused of stealing 2 sodas and a sweet roll, and the police gave him 30 seconds of consideration. So I don't want to hear about politics. You, sir, said that you were concerned about your son, but this was somebody's son.
No, what I said is my son is concerned about the community, and that my son...
I'm not talking to you.
No,
I'm talking to you as a parent.
I get it.
I am talking to you as somebody whose child has been shot down. I want you to put yourself in that position for 1 split second, to walk those shoes of empathy, and then wonder why we are angry. So you want to hear my testimony and solutions? I think that first you should start by knowing something about the young man that this controversy is about. I think we need a citizen review board, and I don't want any toothless review board like they tried to pass off in Ferguson. A real citizen review board that we've been trying to get for years, but that has been blockaded by politics, including by Francis Slade. I want transparency. I want those police officers' names released so that we can do background checks, and where other people who may have had problems with them before can come forward. I'm tired of people being protected by the Blue Shield, and I know that you all say that you don't have control over the police department, but we all know that that is false, because you are the lawmakers and political body of this city. Your constituents put you in here for a reason. And you are being irresponsible if you cannot look at me now and tell me one fact about this young man who was shot down with 12 bullets in 28 seconds over 2 sodas and a sweet roll. National news is going on and saying we could do better. And I'm telling this board now, not only should we do better, but we need to do better quick. Because young people are dying. And just because they don't look like you doesn't make it any less important.
Ariba Shakur.
How y'all doing? First off, thank y'all for letting us speak. Let me go through these things that I got. One of the things I want to point out first off is that the police presence in here right now is to me, my opinion is to really intimidate us instead of come and figure out what the community's problems are, or Dotson earlier was having dialogue with you guys back and forth, but the community that's being affected by the actions that the 2 cops did, he didn't want to have any dialogue. And I know you had mentioned that it was a last minute thing or whatever, but you didn't feel that it was important to maybe consider him to talk to us or answer any questions, but you felt that it was cool to have officers sit in the back and watch people who went through metal detectors and got everything checked up here, as if this is some violent situation.
I just want to say that we did not invite or ask the police to be here this afternoon. I don't know. I assume they're here of their own accord.
Okay. One of the things, I was with Miss Vega that day when she talked to Kajim's grandmother. Yeah, it's Kajim. Dotson had said Kajimi earlier. It's Kajim. And one of the things she had mentioned was that he was not mentally ill. Is that something that has been passed, that's some information that's been passed down to you guys through the police, that he was mentally ill? Where did that come from? Because I remember seeing that stuff on YouTube and stuff like that through different things, but I'm not sure if that's actual factual. Is that something that you guys are standing on and saying that he was a mentally ill person, or that he was having mentally ill syndromes while he was out there before he got shot? So that hasn't been confirmed.
I don't think anybody knows a diagnosis or anything.
But yet you guys are letting the media just splash that out everywhere.
We've not us.
not, but you guys
Go
represent
ahead.
St. Louis City.
Go ahead and say what you want to say.
I am saying it, and I'm asking you so you can say yes, you know the answer, or no, you don't.
You don't know the answer.
Okay, so I'll move to the next one. His grandmother also said that there was never a knife present. Has that been proven that there was a knife there, and that wasn't a sweet roll in his hand instead of a butter knife? Has it been confirmed that he had a knife at all in his hand? And I'm asking you guys because you represent St. Louis. You guys are aldermen who were appointed, whatever, to represent your sections, and together you make up the whole city. So you're what's the word I'm looking for? Just answer the question. Was it confirmed that a knife was there?
All we know is that an investigation is going on. We don't know anything.
No, what were you saying according to the police? According to the police, there was a knife. Okay. Another thing I want to point out is I understand you guys, and I'm not too sure about all of y'all. Some of y'all might be good people, some of y'all might be evil. But this thing that we're battling, it has to be attacked at two sides. Obviously, you guys are attacking it from the legislation side, and then people like me, we're attacking it more from an emotional reaction, just go out and do what you feel type of side, because we have no place to be vocal really or to get things changed. And so what I'm asking of you guys, instead of like shunning that energy, how about you guys help us harness that into something good, or just appreciate it for what it is, because if it wasn't for people like us, Ferguson would have never gotten the attention that it got. I'm sorry to just look at you, but you're right in the middle. There's so many things that wouldn't have got the attention that it had if it was just one-sided, your legislation side. And another thing I want you to understand, I don't think you guys can correctly have empathy for the situation if you don't perceive it correctly. The system that we're going against is white supremacy, and it's real, it's everywhere. I don't know if it's true, but it's in this building when I look around. Like, I look up there, and it's just all these white people in this place, as if I have no history, as if my place in this country means nothing. And it's a lot of black people at this table here, but yeah, it's just, it's evident everywhere you go. Everywhere you go. And so for people to act like this isn't a race thing, it's insane. And I feel like you guys, as the people who represent St. Louis, should handle it as a race issue, because this is what it is. Don't bounce around the issues. Can you guys do that? Is that something that's within your means?
I want you to turn around and look back here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that one. That's cool. You didn't have to come up to me, though.
I love you.
I love you too, but can I do what I'm doing?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
That's his father.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks.
Some of us white people care.
Dang, jeez.
Okay?
I think communication's occurring here. I think if you go down in the front of the hall, where you come in, you'll see a mural down there as well.
A mural for black people.
You're right. I say it all the time. You're exactly right.
So I am right. So it seems that there's some kind of maybe internal issues going on with the people that represent St. Louis. Some people say that it is one issue, and some people say that it's not. To me, that's a problem. Can you guys agree on that that's an issue? Is that an issue?
It always is.
You were right in what you said.
It is an issue? Okay. Another thing that I want you guys to understand is while you guys battle with your issues, the youth that have been affected by this, we've already made up our minds. We're going to die for what we believe in. We're not being treated with respect. We don't have equality like you guys think we do, and we're aware of that. We're intelligent. We were born in situations that were more calm than what they are now, and they've been aggravated as we've gotten older, and now it's chaotic. And we're not going to stop until we get it. So I advise you guys, while you're here in these positions, to get your shine on and get your place in history for doing what's right, because we're not going to stop. And we can either be known as those people who represented St. Louis wrongly or rightly. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you. January Johnson. January Johnson.
My name is January Johnson, Ansa, actually, and I grew up in Walnut Park. I'm so sorry Chris Carter isn't here, because I wish that he had been an alderman when I was a young girl, because, like I said, I grew up in Walnut Park. I went to school at Cardinal Ritter Preparatory High School. I graduated with 3.6 GPA. I went on to Howard University. I came back. I went to University of Missouri St. Louis. All my brothers and sisters, by the way, my mother has been a registered nurse practitioner for over 35 years. My father passed when I was very little. 4 of us raised by one woman. All together, we all have multiple degrees. We all continue to love and respect each other and our people, but I'm going to give you a very, very, very easy example of what we go through. At the age of 15, while I grew up in Walnut Park, and I volunteered at Walbridge Elementary School with Mama Lisa, teaching Cuban dance and Haitian dance and drumming, because a lot of people here know me from that background. I've been studying traditional West African dance since the age of 14. I'm 32. While I was on my way back home, I lived right around the corner. It was late. It was about 9 o'clock at night, because that's how late we were there with those young people, giving them everything and anything we had, as I was taught to do. And I walked home with my book bag on my back, because in between dancing and helping to lead drumming, I had schoolwork to do. And there was a police officer standing at a corner store right in between Lillian and Beacon, because I live on Beacon. And as I tried to walk home, the police officer stopped me and he said, "Where are you going?" He didn't ask me how I was doing. He didn't say, "Make sure you get home safely." I'm only 5'3", and I've grown 2 inches, so it's real obvious then that I was a little girl. He said, "Where are you going? What's in your bag? What are you doing out here?" And he didn't say it from a distance. He was this close in my face. And for the record, no, he didn't look anything like me or any of the people I'm related to, and that is just for the record. But I wasn't a stupid little girl, and I said, "I don't have to tell you that. What do you want? Am I being detained?" He laughed in my face. He thought it was funny. Ha ha. He stepped back, and I walked home. Now I want you to imagine that I was a 15-year-old boy, a 15-year-old black boy. I don't know if I would have made it home that night. And what would I have been doing? Nothing. Nothing wrong. Everything right. Would I have made it home that night? Would my mother and all her brilliance, who worked so hard to make sure all of her children were not only good people, but people who contribute to the society that they're born in, would she have ever seen me again? If I had been my brother, my only brother, would my brother had made it home that night? So when these young people are standing in front of you and they're telling you that we're tired of it, this is not make-believe. This is not some fantasy in their mind. My question is, and I have several questions, about the review board. As I understand it, there are only 3 people who are a part of this review board. No? Who are the people who are sitting a part of the review board? As I heard that Chief Dotson was one. I heard that, and Terry Kennedy was another.
No, I think you misunderstood. They are working on the guidelines for a civilian review board. We do not have one, but they are working.
I know you
to put
don't
one
have one.
together.
I'm trying to figure out who
And
are
it
the
will be
people who are part
broader.
of bringing it. There are only 3 people.
At this
2 of which are, one is a part of the police department. Right. And the other one is as it should be. Yes, please answer that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this generated out of a community action. And so very much involved this Coalition Against Police Crimes and Repression, who've been really pushing this for many years. So they have also been at the table in these discussions. So there's been discussions with the chief, representation from this coalition, myself as the sponsor, and now the Director of Public Safety. There's also been representation from the NAACP and a few other organizations.
Okay, so there are more than just 3
Yes,
entities.
yes it is. Yes, I did not want to interrupt them earlier, but it's far more than what they just mentioned.
Okay, because that would have been a problem.
The base has been put together, and they're doing the fine points now, but a lot of people have had input into that process.
Okay, that's great. My other question is, and I know that you all want to, and Madam Chairman, you've said it over and over, you want to hear what we have to say so that you can go back and I guess think about it or something. But truthfully, we're the ones who are going and experiencing what's happening out here. We need answers from you. You want to hear what we have to say, but you've got to give us answers too. We want to know, truthfully, do you think it's okay that the 2 officers involved in this particular incident, they're already back on the street? Because from where I am, that makes no sense. The investigation is ongoing, well then they should not be allowed to be back amongst the civilians. It doesn't make any sense. So we want to know what is going to happen in terms of that. And my other question is, because I don't really know, how much power do you all actually have? Can you disband the police if that was your determination? What can you really do? I don't know. This is a very honest, sincere question. What can you really do to affect change? Because I'm grown now. I'm born and raised here. I was born and raised during the flooding of the crack epidemic. My brothers and sisters went to St. Mark's de Porres School. At that time, I was 3 years old, and I remember being able to walk all up and down Minerva Avenue at the corner of Kings Highway. And I knew all my neighbors, and we had regular block parties. If you know that area, you know that St. Mark's de Porres is now completely in shambles. You know that that neighborhood has been completely torn apart. In the early 80s, it was something, but by 1990, it had been overrun with crack cocaine. So I'm saying that I've been here for a long time, not as long as some of you, but pretty long to know that things aren't improving. They're worsening, and I have 4 boys myself now. I shelter the hell out of them. The hell. I don't let them go anywhere without me or their father. And I'm not afraid of the other children on the block, not at all. I fear for them. I'm afraid that my 12-year-old, who now stands taller than I do, who could pick me up, is going to be mistaken for some 18, 19-year-old thug. Because aren't they all thugs? Aren't they all thugs? And the police who couldn't bother to be here to listen to what we have to say today, but could bother to show up and stand in the corners. And if you think that's not a threatening act, when we do not trust you to do simple things, you cannot stand in the corner with your guns and your hands on your hips and think that we are not threatened and then want to know why there is hostility. To that end, I have one more comment, and that is this. The sincerity of Chief Dotson and the entire police department is completely jeopardized when we come to you stating a problem, seeking solutions, and you say, what will the community do? When we come to you and we make it clear that there is an issue, and we don't feel that it is completely or even partially of our doing, and you say, what will I do? If you hit me in my arm and I say, you hit me in my arm, and you say, well, don't you think we should work on that together? The sincerity of your entire position is completely jeopardized. I hope you come with some solutions. I'll be seeing you, Chris.
Thank you. Kofi Ansa.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kofi Ansa, the husband of January Ansa. The sister was just up here speaking. And I basically had 3 points that I wanted to bring up. 2 of them were for Chief Dotson, but since he didn't care to be here to hear what the people had to say, I'm just going to read these questions off to you all, and you can feel free whether you have the answer or not, and however you want to address it. So for Chief Dotson, I wanted to ask him, why aren't we learning from practices and policies of police departments in other parts of the world that do not use excessive force on civilian populations? The other question that I had is, how come officers are involved with using lethal force are released back into our community while the investigation is still ongoing? To us, it looks like nothing has been done. If you just tell it it's under investigation, it's under investigation, that could take years and years, and in the meantime, the problem still continues, so that is not an answer. It's not a valid answer. My third point is a question for Mr. Kennedy. What obstacles have you faced, and what lessons have you learned in the past 25-year attempt to establish a civilian police review board? We know that you've been working on this for a long, long time, and since I was a youngster, I know that you've been working on this, and here we are, 2014, and we're still talking about it. So what obstacles have you faced, and what lessons have you learned? Also, how can we make sure that this civilian police review board is effective? Seeing how we got the toothless model from Ferguson the other day, how do we make sure that a civilian police review board is actually effective and a tool of the people for the people?
Thank you.
I will respond. The chair says I will respond. There are several elements that make a civilian review board have teeth. One is its ability to be independent from the police force itself, so that people will feel as if they have a fair and unbiased body to go to. Another item means that they would need to have the funding by which to be able to have the investigators and be able to function properly. The third element means they will need to be able to get at the information necessary to do their investigation. And so what we've tried to do is to devise a bill that carries all of those major components in it, so that this does have teeth and can actually serve the people. With it being independent, that means that people can feel a little bit more comfortable in bringing their complaints to a third body, a body that is separate from the police. Because we've heard in testimony before the Public Safety Committee years ago that people in some instances were discouraged from making complaints, and other instances didn't feel comfortable. So those things were worked into the bill. I can't say I've been working on it for 25 years, but I have been working on it for some time. The call for civilian review did not start back in 2006. There was an incident, and the Urban League back in the 30s actually called for civilian review. So it has a very long history in the city. It was an incident where an African-American male was handcuffed in a police car, and supposedly he was trying to run away or kick the door open, but he was shot while still handcuffed. And so at that point, they called for civilian review. Since then, a coalition was formed locally, and that's some of the grassroots organizations we've been working with. The other thing that makes civilian review work is not as an administrative decision by the police, but a legislative process by the whatever legislative body there is, so that it is not created by the police force themselves, but a separate body away from the police. That's what also makes it work. And according to the Justice Department report, the other thing that makes them viable to the people is that people are involved in its creation. And so that's why we're interfacing with the various groups and organizations like even Urban League, NAACP, the Coalition Against Police Crimes and Repression, OBS, and a number of others who've been coming to the table to make it happen. At some point when a bill is introduced, there will also be hearings where people can come and hear what are the different components, but those are the major things that make them work. Thank you for the question.
Tara Thompson. Tara Thompson.
Good afternoon, everybody. This point has been made a couple of times already, but I don't understand how we are opening lines of communication with the police department when the police department is not here. You all cannot speak on behalf of the police department, as we've been told, so how do we get issues addressed? You guys are supposed to be helping us, working for the people, so I don't want to go through a middleman. I don't want a liaison, like Dotson should be here, there should be people here. I feel like this was done just to appease us. Okay, we're gonna let the public speak, we're not here. This was stated yesterday at the Ferguson City Council meeting. We're not here to vent. I don't wanna vent to you. I want solutions, I want things done. I don't have children. I, at this point in St. Louis, won't have any because I don't want them to be gunned down by the police. That's not okay. I had several questions for Dotson. He's not here. If you guys could take these back to him and get us some answers, I'd appreciate it. I know before there were moves to get firefighters and police officers and other public servants to work where they live. I don't know if that is a numbers issue, the reason why there aren't public servants that serve where they live. You cannot be fully engaged, you cannot care about people the way you should if a child has been gunned down and you're able to get in your car and head 30 minutes west to your corner and that not affect you at all. There's no way that you can care about that the way that you should, because one, if you're white, you won't have the same experience, and two, you can go back to your corner and be unaffected. Everybody needs to be uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable, so everybody should be uncomfortable. So I don't know where that ordinance or policy went, but that needs to come back. Even if it's not the full force, there needs to be a certain percentage of servants that live where they serve. I'm not gonna let anybody come into my neighborhood and mess up. So if half of the force is from here and the other half is not, I would expect those officers that live there to check the officers that don't. You can't come in here and mess up where I live. That's the first thing. Secondly, I've read several articles about police officers and the hiring process, and the IQ requirement has been dropped significantly. I don't want a bunch of dumb people running around with guns and then they have the law behind them that says that this shooting was okay. You have lower IQ, so they're not able to question, I want you to go out there and fire on citizens. I want you to fire tear gas on citizens. So if you have this IQ, then you question like, oh, wait a minute, maybe that's not the right thing to do. But if we just give a bunch of dumb people guns and militarized weapons, then there are no questions. So what exactly are the requirements for being hired into the police force, and how often are they retested? And this is psychological testing, this is IQ testing, this is training, like how often does this occur? My sister just got up here and said she has more than 40 hours of training and she works at the post office. There's no way that 40 hours of training is adequate for what they encounter. So I would like to know what the process is for hiring and how often they're gonna have to go through that process. Thirdly, how do we even follow up on the Powell investigation? I don't at this point even know where to go with that. Dotson said that he's turned over the information to the circuit attorney and the FBI. How do we follow up on that? Like, I don't know how to follow up on that. And 2 points that were made earlier, there's no way that if we can't get information on what this investigation is and what's happening, that these 2 officers should be back out on the street. Like, that doesn't make sense. You can't give me any information about the investigation or the status of that investigation, but they get to go to work. That doesn't make sense. They should at least be talking to people. Like, if you shoot someone, you shouldn't be okay the next day. Like, are they talking to therapists? Like, what is happening there? Like, I am suffering from being tear gassed more nights than not since August 9th from some kind of traumatic stress disorder, and I haven't killed anyone. I can't sleep. Diet is completely screwed up, and again, I haven't killed anyone. So how is it that they are able to process that, move on, and they're back on the job already? That's not okay. So the militarization, all of these weapons and tanks and sniper rifles that I've apparently paid for, that they're looking down at me with, have been sent from the Pentagon. So according to 1033, they have a year or so to either use these weapons or they have to return them. So I want to know if that is the case with St. Louis City. Is that what's going on? Like, we got these weapons and now we have to use them, or is it like budgeting? Like, if you don't use up all your money, they're gonna take some back, so we gotta find something to use this money on. So I understand that that's one of the stipulations of 1033, and I would like to know if that is the case. And really, going to Ferguson, quite honestly, the looting and the rioting could have been quelled if they wanted to quell it. However, they didn't want to because they wanted to agitate so that they could use, like if you would have seen their faces, like we were just targets to them. It was a game of Call of Duty for them. Like they were not looking at people. You cannot give people this equipment and tell them they have a year to use it or it goes away. These are new toys for them. When you get a new car, what do you want to do? You call your friends and say, we're going on a road trip because you want to use your new car. If these people have been demonized and now you have a new assault rifle, guess what? You want to use it. It's not okay. So these points need to be addressed for not only St. Louis City, for not only St. Louis County. Also, I understand that this is St. Louis City, but the whole, well, that's Ferguson, well, that's St. Louis County, that's part of what got us in this mess to begin with. That's not some faraway land. Ferguson is St. Louis. St. Louis County is St. Louis. Like, we're all here together. This is St. Louis. This needs to be worked out. As they said, Elizabeth stated, young people are dying, and just because they do not look like all of you does not make it any less important. You are here for a reason. You need to do your job, and if you cannot, please step down so that someone who cares can. Thank you.
Kathy Pinkston.
First, I thought he was going to say something.
Hello to you all. I'm a caregiver. I live in Maplewood. I'm a mother of a large family, grandmother. I'm Christian. That's basically where I come out of my love for people. It comes out of my love for God. And I'm thinking of the very largest perspective on this subject right now. And I'm thinking from the really big picture, what we need is a little more love. We just need to look at each other as a human family. And it came to my mind the other day that what if next week, this is far-fetched, but what if next week aliens were to attack Earth? In 1 minute, in one split minute, every difference we've ever placed between us, everything we've thought to identify ourselves in a different way would fall away. We would see ourselves as a human family, fighting for the human family, fighting for our planet Earth. We would back each other. We'd live and die for each other. We'd do everything. We'd lay aside our wealth. Nothing would have any meaning to us except the preservation of our planet and the preservation of each other. And I promise you, we would lay our lives down for each other. We would trust each other. We wouldn't see color. We would not see color. We would see ourselves as the human family that we are. And I think if we would look at it now, when we don't have that threat hanging over our heads, just look at us as a planet Earth. Look around and see, oh, there's my brother. That's what I do when I'm driving down the street. I see somebody walking by, they look like they're kind of having a hard time. Sometimes you can tell. I say a little prayer and I say, Lord, please bless my brother whom I love. Lord, please bless my sister whom I love. Bless her life. Help her. I pray over the person. I ask them to have work. I ask them to have successful families. I ask them to have peace. I ask for them to have inspiration. I pray over them, and after that, I love them. I will never meet that person in this life, but I love them nonetheless. And it just comes from praying for people. And Jesus said, pray for your enemy. Love your enemy. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you. Pray. Pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you. Our enemies fall away and we love them. They can still be mean to us. They can still hate us. They can still do us wrong. We don't feel it. We don't feel it at all because we have the love of God put in our heart for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was there for Mr.
James Roll?
Yes.
Okay.
First, I thank God for my being here. And he's right. That's supposed to be King David. He was a Hebrew. Praise God. Giving honor to presiding officer, President Reed, aldermen and alderwomen, the bereaved family of the Powell family and the Brown family, Mr. Anthony Bell, and all of you that make up this assembly. You know, if Powell, the one who was shot down, if he had Colonel before his name, would he receive death? If he had Colonel Powell before his name, because of so-called illness, would this man still receive death? We know that he has served in the United States military. You know the Powell I'm talking about, don't you? So I'm just saying, if this man was Colonel Powell, the Word of God, I'm not going to be long. The Word of God said that in the last days, it would be lawlessness. Lawlessness is not only talking about the people, they're talking about the lawmakers, they're talking about the aldermen, the CIA, the FBI, and yes, even the police department. So it behooves us today to hear the word of God and repent. Rise yet today, because night is coming and no man is going to be able to work.
Jasmine Maurer.
Hi. My name is Jasmine Maurer, and I am the director of the Peace Economy Project, which is a local nonprofit here in St. Louis. In my work with the Peace Economy Project, we focus a lot on militarization abroad and how U.S. forces go into these communities that we've decided are problematic. We usually call them terrorists when they are abroad, and we go into these communities and we devastate people's lives. And listening to the people in the St. Louis community and a lot of people who testified here today, I see a very similar thing happening here in the city of St. Louis. We are targeting communities of predominantly black people. We are terrorizing them with police. We are killing people with police. And this is something that's just not okay. I have a problem with the type of police militarization that we have been seeing here. We have been seeing police armed with all kinds of weapons that they are getting from the Pentagon and other types of federal programs. We also are seeing kind of tactics of war coming into our police department. Why are the police looking at a black man and seeing him as a threat as opposed to a person in their community? That is not the type of mentality that I think is befitting of our police department. And I don't think that we should be giving them any further types of gizmos and gadgets like a real-time intelligence center. That is another tactic of war. Surveillance was used abroad and it's now being brought into our communities to control the people that are here. I think that instead what we should be doing is we should be holding the police force accountable. It's a very good thing that I'm hearing that there's a civilian review board that's going to be coming up, and I hope that this is something that the people of St. Louis have some control over, and they have an avenue by which that they can hold the police accountable for their actions. Because as of right now, I don't see the police being held accountable for the actions that they have committed at this point. I think civilian review is going to be very important. I think that we need to be kind of keeping an eye on the police department. I don't think we should be giving them a real-time intelligence center, and I don't think that we should be giving them more avenues to control the people in our communities. We also need to be looking at the people in our communities and showing respect. We need to be showing respect to the Black and brown people, people with disabilities, and all these other people that we are just allowing the police to kill. And so I think that we have a lot of work to do, and I am really hoping that this testimony, a lot of y'all will be kind of listening to this and coming up with some solutions and talking to the people who are in this room and in the communities and figuring out how to move forward from here. Thanks.
John Chasnoff.
John Chasnoff.
I wanted to first just run through some policy recommendations that hopefully will be constructive, kind of nuts and bolts things that have to do with use of force and accountability. I don't want to spend too long on them because you'll see in the second half of my talk, I think that's only part of the picture. It was kind of a love fest here with body cameras this morning, and everybody's adopting body cameras, and I just want to raise a red flag that there are huge civil liberties concerns with body cameras, privacy issues. The Ferguson police, for instance, when they rolled out their body cameras, the first thing they did was start taping people at peaceful protests. Mm-hmm. And what's happening to that data? Is it being put into databases where it can be misused? How long is it kept? There are just tons of privacy questions we can discuss at another hearing, but I just don't think we ought to jump into body cameras as a solution to our problems. The second thing I wanted to bring up is this 20-foot rule that was mentioned in terms of the recent shooting up in Riverview. It might make sense to have some sense of the distance before a knife becomes a threat, but in this situation, the officers already had their guns drawn, and so it makes no sense to me to have one distance set, that a knife is a threat at that distance no matter what the circumstances are. It's very different if you're 21 feet away and the officer